Section 1. The Laughter Before the Storm. December 16, 1944, 5:30 a.m. A frozen forest in the Ardennes, Belgium. The darkness isn't quiet. Artillery cracks the night open without warning, rolling through the trees like thunder trapped in ice. Snow explodes off branches. The ground shudders. Somewhere between the trunks, American soldiers jerk awake in foxholes, breath turning to white smoke before they can even shout a warning. You can almost feel the cold bite through wool and canvas. Fingers numb, boots frozen stiff, rifles slick with frost. This isn't supposed to be happening. For weeks, German officers had laughed at this place. The Ardennes, too dense, too steep, too frozen. A region Allied planners used to rest exhausted divisions, not defend against a major assault. German generals around map tables tapped the forest with gloved fingers and smiled. Armor couldn't pass here, not in winter, not through snow-choked roads and black ice. They were wrong. Before dawn fully breaks, entire American regiments are already being swallowed by the storm of steel. Panzer divisions surge forward under cover of fog, so thick it erases distance. Tiger tanks grind through villages that had gone to sleep thinking the war was far away. This is Hitler's last gamble. And at first it works. By mid-morning, confusion spreads faster than the cold. Telephone lines are cut. Radios crackle with half-finished reports. Officers argue over maps that no longer make sense. Units meant to be resting are suddenly under full assault. At Bastogne, a road junction so unremarkable it barely earns a name, paratroopers of the 101st Airborne dig in with whatever they can find. Ammunition runs low almost immediately. Medical supplies vanish faster than the wounded arrive. Snow keeps falling. German commanders, watching the early reports, allow themselves something rare. Confidence. This is what they planned: surprise, speed, disbelief. American armor, they believe, will never respond in time. The roads are too narrow, the weather too brutal, fuel too scarce. Even if tanks move, they'll freeze, break down, get stuck. And even if one American general wants to respond, he can't. Not fast enough. Lieutenant General George S. Patton, Jr., is 150 miles south, deep in France, fighting a completely different war. His Third Army is facing east, toward Germany, toward a front Patton has spent months hammering with relentless momentum. His headquarters hums with routine violence, orders issued, maps updated, engines maintained. When the first fragmented reports reach him, they sound like rumors. A German breakthrough. Snowbound units surrounded. Bastogne in danger. Patton doesn't laugh. He stops and listens. You can almost see it in the way witnesses later describe him. The pause, the narrowing of the eyes, the way his mind moves faster than the room. Others talk about reinforcements, about holding actions, about waiting for weather. Patton does something else. He asks a single question. How soon can we attack north? The room goes quiet. North? That would mean turning an entire army, * 3 corps, hundreds of tanks, thousands of trucks * 90 degrees in the middle of winter, through ice, through forests, on roads barely wide enough for 2 vehicles to pass. No army has ever done that. Not this fast. Not in these conditions. Patton doesn't ask if it's possible. He asks how long it will take. German officers, meanwhile, continue to underestimate what they cannot imagine. In forward headquarters, staff officers sip hot coffee and trace arrows across maps. The Americans are disorganized, shocked, their command structure fractured. Even if relief is attempted, it will come too late. Bastogne will fall. The roads will open. The offensive will roll on toward Antwerp. They joke about frozen Shermans abandoned in ditches. They joke about American dependence on supply lines that can't exist in this weather. They joke because laughter is easier than caution, and because they believe winter is on their side. On December 17th, Patton gathers his commanders. There is no grand speech, no theatrical flourish. Just orders. Third Army will disengage from the east. Immediately, units will reorient north. Engineers will clear roads that don't officially exist. Fuel will be rerouted. Ammunition convoys push through snowstorms. Tanks will move at night if they have to. Some officers stare at him. One finally says what everyone is thinking. "General, this will take at least 3 days." Patton nods, then corrects him. 2. The room understands something then. This is not a suggestion. This is a race. As German armor tightens its grip around Bastogne, American tank crews begin climbing into machines that feel like ice boxes. Engines cough. Metal screams in protest. Tracks bite into frozen mud and slip. And yet they move. Sherman tanks lurch forward, whitewashed with snow, headlights dark, guided by soldiers who no longer feel their feet. Bridges creak. Roads vanish under drifts. Vehicles break down and are shoved aside without stopping. There is no elegance in this movement. Only urgency. Only will. German intelligence, watching the weather maps, remains calm. No major armored counterattack is detected. They don't see the columns moving. They don't hear the engines starting in the dark. They don't realize that the forest they mocked is about to betray them. Because somewhere north, through snow and silence, American tanks are already coming. And Bastogne is still holding. Section 2, 90 degrees into hell. December 18, 1944, just before dawn. Somewhere along a frozen road outside Neufchâteau. The engine noise never stops. You hear it before you see anything, a low, continuous growl rolling through the trees, vibrating through ground that hasn't fully thawed since October. Exhaust smoke hangs heavy in the air, mixing with fog and the sharp bite of burned fuel. Headlights are taped down to slits, barely enough to follow the ghostly tracks left by the vehicle ahead. This is Third Army on the move. And it shouldn't be. Sherman tanks were never meant for this. They're steel contracts in the cold. Oil thickens. Batteries die without warning. Every mile risks mechanical failure. Every stop risks frostbite. Crews sleep sitting up if they sleep at all, wrapped in anything they can find. Yet the column stretches on. Miles of armor, half-tracks, fuel trucks, ambulances sliding dangerously close to ditches that disappear under snow. Engineers work ahead of the lead elements, clearing trees by hand when explosives won't fire in the cold. This is what Patton meant by 2 days. Not planning. Not perfection. Movement. Relentless movement. At Third Army headquarters, Patton stands over a map, gloved finger tracking progress northward. The lines are messy now, units out of sequence, timetables shredded. But the arrow points one way. Bastogne. He knows what's at stake. If Bastogne falls, the Germans gain control of 7 critical roads. The offensive accelerates. Allied lines bend, maybe break. Thousands of Americans are cut off or destroyed. But if Bastogne holds long enough, everything changes. Patton issues a short message to Major General Hugh Gaffey, commander of the 4th Armored Division. Drive like hell. No poetry, no flourish. Just intent. Inside Bastogne, time feels different. The 101st Airborne is surrounded now. Snow falls into foxholes already crowded with wounded men. Artillery shells walk methodically across the perimeter. German loudspeakers crackle to life, offering surrender. The answer is silence. Then gunfire. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe scribbles a reply that will become legend. One word, blunt, almost dismissive. Nuts. But bravado doesn't warm frozen hands. It doesn't stop bleeding. It doesn't refill ammunition crates that are almost empty. Every man inside the perimeter knows the truth. If relief doesn't come soon, courage won't be enough. German commanders remain confident. Reports indicate American movement, yes, but scattered, disorganized. No sign of a concentrated armored thrust. The weather still favors the attacker. Snow grounds Allied aircraft. Roads remain choked. Fuel shortages are already slowing American responses elsewhere. The Ardennes has done its job. Or so they think. What German intelligence fails to grasp is scale. They expect hesitation. What they get is commitment. On December 19th, the leading elements of the 4th Armored Division slam into German screening forces near the village of Martelange. Sherman tanks crest ridgelines that should have been impassable, guns barking at muzzle flashes barely visible through fog and snow. German infantry stare in disbelief. American armor. Here, some are convinced it's a probing force, a bluff. Surely this can't be the main effort. The Ardennes isn't supposed to allow this kind of movement, not this fast, not this heavy. Yet more tanks appear. Then more. Radio reports climb the German chain of command, each more urgent than the last. Enemy armor advancing north, aggressively, in strength. Officers begin to frown. This wasn't the plan. The fighting is brutal and intimate. Sherman crews fire at shapes more than targets. German anti-tank guns lie buried under snow until they erupt at point-blank range. Entire platoons vanish in seconds. Tanks burn, illuminating white forests in orange light that feels almost obscene against the cold. But the Americans keep pushing. Patton has ordered no pauses. Bypassed enemy strongpoints are left to following infantry. Speed matters more than cleanliness. Every mile gained is a mile closer to Bastogne, and a mile stolen from German momentum. Tank commanders don't know the bigger picture. They don't need to. They know the direction. North. By December 20th, German headquarters finally feels it. This isn't a token counterattack. This is an army. Maps are redrawn in a hurry. Panzer divisions meant to exploit breakthroughs are suddenly ordered to turn and face an unexpected threat. Fuel allocations are revised. Timetables begin slipping. The laughter is gone now, replaced by calculation. And something colder. Concern. Patton, meanwhile, receives weather reports predicting a break in the clouds. He smiles. Because when the skies clear, Allied air power will return, and German columns, already stretched and vulnerable, will bleed under fighter-bomber attacks. The Ardennes offensive depends on speed and surprise. Patton is stealing both. On December 21st, the 4th Armored Division reaches the outskirts of Bastogne, still miles away, but close enough to hear the distant thunder of artillery pounding the perimeter. Close enough to know men are waiting. German resistance stiffens. They know what this means now. If the Americans break through here, the encirclement fails. The psychological victory Hitler needs evaporates. Orders come down. Hold at all costs. The snow deepens. Visibility drops to yards. Tank crews fire until barrels glow, then keep firing. Somewhere ahead, beyond the smoke and trees, Bastogne still holds. Barely. And Patton's gamble is about to meet its moment of truth. Because breaking through is one thing. Breaking through in time is something else entirely. Section 3, Bastogne is running out of time. December 22nd, 1944, morning. Inside the Bastogne perimeter. The cold has become a constant enemy. Not a sensation anymore. A condition. Men move stiffly, faces swollen, eyes sunken. Bandages freeze solid. Morphine syrettes snap if handled too roughly. The wounded lie on doors pulled from nearby houses, breath fogging the air inside makeshift aid stations that smell of blood, smoke, and damp wool. Artillery never stops. Shells fall with a dull, heavy thud, churning snow into gray slush. Trees splinter. Foxholes collapse. Every explosion shakes loose another layer of frost that settles silently on helmets and shoulders. You can almost feel the waiting. Waiting for orders. Waiting for food. Waiting for the sound of engines. Waiting for something to change. German envoys approach under white flags. They carry a typed message, formal and confident, demanding surrender. It lists the hopelessness of the situation, the overwhelming firepower, the inevitability of destruction. McAuliffe reads it once. Then again. He looks up, annoyed more than afraid. Nuts, he says. The word travels fast. It spreads through frozen lines and shattered buildings, passed from man to man like contraband warmth. A joke, maybe, or defiance distilled into a single syllable. But beneath the laughter, reality presses in. Ammunition is dangerously low. Artillery shells are rationed. Rations themselves are nearly gone. The perimeter is thin enough that men can hear German voices at night. Bastogne cannot endure much longer. Outside the encirclement, the fight turns savage. The 4th Armored Division pushes toward the village of Assenois, one of the final gateways to Bastogne. German units, now fully aware of what Patton is attempting, throw everything they have into blocking the advance. Panzer IVs dig and hull down positions. Anti-tank guns are camouflaged under snow. Infantry armed with Panzerfausts wait in tree lines, counting seconds between engine noises. Sherman tanks roll forward anyway. They hit minefields. They take fire from directions no one can quite identify. One tank erupts in flame, then another. Crews bail out only to be cut down by machine gun fire. Still the column moves. Replacement tanks slide into the gaps left by burning wrecks, their tracks grinding over blackened snow and twisted metal. Patton's order echoes through every level of command. No stopping. German officers begin to sense something slipping beyond their control. The Ardennes offensive was built on momentum, on the belief that Allied response would be slow, fragmented, cautious, that American commanders would need time to think. Patton has removed time from the equation. Now German units are reacting instead of advancing. Fuel meant for a drive west is being burned just to hold ground. Panzer divisions are fighting in defensive postures they were never meant to occupy during this operation. Every hour Bastogne holds is an hour the offensive bleeds. On the afternoon of December 22nd, the weather changes. The clouds break. For the first time in days, pale winter sunlight spills across the Ardennes, and with it comes the sound German troops have learned to fear. Aircraft engines. Allied fighter bombers scream overhead, diving through gaps in the cloud cover. Rockets slam into columns of vehicles. Bombs walk across crossroads choked with traffic. German supply convoys scatter, abandoning trucks and fuel that will never reach the front. Inside Bastogne, parachutes blossom in the sky. Supplies. Ammunition. Medical kits. Food. Men cheer weakly, some too exhausted to even stand. Others simply stare upward, stunned by the sight of white silk drifting down through gun smoke. Relief is still not here. But hope is. December 23rd. The push toward Assenois resumes before dawn. Sherman tanks move with headlights dark, guided by infantry clinging to their hulls. Snow muffles sound, turning gunfire into a distant echo until it's suddenly everywhere. The fighting collapses into chaos. Tank against tank at near point-blank range, infantry rushing forward through shell holes, Orders shouted, lost, repeated. Radios crackle and die. Officers lead from the front because there's no other way to move men forward. By midday, the American spearhead reaches the edge of the village. German resistance stiffens into desperation. They know what this means. If Asenwa falls, the road to Bastogne opens. At 3rd Army Headquarters, Patton waits. Reports arrive in fragments, progress measured in yards, casualties mounting, German resistance heavier than expected. Patton says nothing. He stares at the map. He knows the clock. He also knows his men. Late in the afternoon, a Sherman tank commanded by Lieutenant Charles Boggess pushes through the final line of German defense. Small arms fire rattles off its hull as it lurches forward, gun trained down the road ahead. The snow-covered road curves. And then, American paratroopers appear. Mud-streaked, bearded, exhausted. Alive. The tank halts. Hands wave. Shouts echo through the cold. The first physical link between Bastogne and the outside world is made. The encirclement is broken. Word spreads fast. Inside Bastogne, men weep openly. Others laugh. Some simply sit down where they stand, suddenly too tired to feel anything at all. Outside, German officers receive the reports in silence. The Americans have done it. Through the Ardennes. Through the snow. Through everything that was supposed to stop them. And now the realization sets in. The offensive has failed. But the full weight of that truth has not yet landed. Because what Patton has just done doesn't only save Bastogne. It changes the entire war in the West. And the Germans are about to understand just how much. Section 4, From Mockery to Collapse. December 24, 1944, Christmas Eve. German Army Group B Headquarters. The mood has shifted. Maps that once showed confident arrows surging west are now crowded with erasures and corrections. Pencils scratch nervously. Staff officers speak in lower voices. Fuel tallies are revised again and again, each revision worse than the last. The Ardennes was supposed to protect them. Instead, it has betrayed them. Reports confirm what many already fear. American armor has broken through to Bastogne. The encirclement is no longer airtight. Supplies are moving in. Wounded are moving out. The psychological blow is immediate and severe. What was meant to be a decisive winter offensive is now a race to avoid disaster. Field Marshal Walter Model reads the situation clearly. Without Bastogne, the offensive loses its spine. German units are overextended, short on fuel, and increasingly exposed to Allied air power now that the weather has cleared. Every mile gained westward now costs exponentially more to hold. Orders go out. Hold ground. Delay the Americans. Buy time. But time is the one resource Germany no longer has. On the front lines, German soldiers feel the change before they fully understand it. American artillery grows heavier, more confident. Counterattacks are sharper, better coordinated. Fighter-bombers roam the skies with near impunity, hunting anything that moves during daylight. Sherman tanks, once dismissed as inferior, now appear in clusters, supported by infantry and artillery in a rhythm German units recognize with dread. This is not improvisation. This is momentum. Inside Bastogne, the mood is surreal. For the first time in days, hot food reaches the lines. Ammunition stocks are replenished. Medics work with proper supplies instead of improvisation. Men sleep without boots on, even if only for an hour. Christmas comes quietly. There are no trees, no decorations, just a few candles and shared rations passed hand to hand. Some men receive mail that has chased them across continents. Others think of home in silence. They know the fighting isn't over. but they also know they survived the worst of it. Patton wastes no time. Breaking the encirclement was only the first step. Now Third Army drives to widen the corridor, pushing German forces back from Bastogne and threatening to roll up the southern shoulder of the offensive entirely. The same roads that were supposed to be impassable now carry a steady flow of American armor and supply trucks. Engineers improve them. Infantry secures the flanks. Artillery sets up with precision that grows sharper by the day. The Ardennes has become a highway. German attempts to counterattack falter. Fuel shortages strand tanks before they reach the front. Luftwaffe sorties are sporadic and costly. Units meant to attack are diverted to defensive roles they were never equipped to handle. Morale erodes. Soldiers begin to understand what their commanders had once laughed away. The Americans didn't just move through the Ardennes. They mastered it. By December 26th, Patton visits the forward areas. He stands near the road into Bastogne, watching tanks and trucks roll past, faces of soldiers streaked with oil and exhaustion. He says little. He doesn't need to. The message is clear. The gamble worked. Not because of luck. Because of preparation, aggression, and an absolute refusal to accept what the enemy believed was impossible. German commanders now speak openly of withdrawal. What began as a bold strike to split the Allied front has turned into a grinding struggle to avoid encirclement themselves. The offensive bleeds men, and machines it cannot replace. The laughter that once accompanied maps of the Ardennes is gone, replaced by the quiet understanding that something fundamental has changed. The Battle of the Bulge will drag on into January, brutal and costly on both sides. But the outcome is no longer in doubt. The initiative has shifted, and it will never return. Because in the frozen forests of the Ardennes, an assumption died. That winter could stop an army. That snow could protect arrogance. That mockery could substitute for preparation. And somewhere in the churned snow and broken trees, the Germans learned the final, bitter lesson. The enemy they underestimated was already moving, while they were laughing. And